Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
Hello, MacPack. It's great to be back for another episode of On the Move with Mac Worley. I, of course, am your host, Mac Worley III. And first and foremost, I would like to thank you for tuning in today. If you're new to the program, you've never checked us out before, we talk about all sorts of things on this show. We talk about politics, philosophy, guns, government, freedom, that kind of stuff. So if you're new, please feel free to join the conversation. We have a lot of different ways that you can tune in and you can speak your mind on the air and everything. You can give us a call. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. You can join in on the conversation that way. Again, that number is 360-450-5625. You can also get us on Twitter. That's at OnTheMoveShow on Twitter. And we got a lot of stuff that we're going to be covering today. Today's episode is titled Divided We Fall. This is episode 149 of On the Move Show. And our featured topics, we're going to talk about Representative John Lewis. You all may be familiar with him. He's a very famous representative. He walked with Martin Luther King during the Freedom Walks. And he's a Democrat, which, it's kind of odd considering the Democrats were the ones that were out there spraying them with water hoses and all that stuff. But I digress. Representative John Lewis and other Democrats, I believe the numbers are up to 22 or somewhere around there, Democrats that will not be. They're refusing to attend Donald Trump's inauguration. I also want to talk about Chicago's violence and gun laws that I believe are causing much of the violence. And I want to talk about Michael Moore. He's claiming that Democrats aren't as brazen as Republicans. He says that Republicans just don't care and they don't stop, which is... It's odd. That's a very funny thing for him to say, and I'm going to talk about that. Then I want to talk about Martin O'Malley. You guys remember who Martin O'Malley was? He was that guy on the debate stage with Hillary Clinton that nobody knew, and he didn't seem to know what he was talking about. Yeah, well, this week he compared Donald Trump and his supporters to Nazis. So we're going to talk about that. Then I want to end the show here today with some final thoughts here on what to look out for in the Trump presidency. And what I mean by that is that I understand that so many of my Republican friends out there, they believe Donald Trump is going to be a good president, and I truly hope so. I hope he's going to be a good president. But the thing about it is that there are some things that are concerning with Donald Trump, and I hope I'm wrong about all of this, but there are some categories that I'm concerned of what he's going to do and what the outcomes are going to be. Those being his reaction to the CIA, his issues with the press, his issues with free trade, his continuing of entitlements, more spending into debt, and potential war. In addition to the civil unrest that we're going to be having here, more than likely during his presidency, and all of this is going to lead up to, I believe, more statism because, as I've said from the beginning of this election season, I think Donald Trump, he believes that government can be used and ought to be used to be the solution to our problems. And I contend that government is typically the problem to begin with, and they can't be the solution to a problem they're creating. So I want to talk about all of this, and I'd love to hear your take on it. Again, that number is 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. All right, at this point, we're going to cut to our first commercial break of the day, and when we come back, we're going to dive right into our featured topics. So you guys don't want to go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bear Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On the Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On The Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
And we're back. And I would be remiss if I did not mention that we broadcast every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do that at our hub, OnTheMoveShow.com. We also broadcast on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. That's SPREAKER.com/OnTheMoveShow. You can check out the weekly show there. You can also check out the archives. We have every episode of our entire program. All 149 episodes are stored on the archive there, so you can check them out. Also, don't forget to check out our shop. We got a shop on our homepage on OnTheMoveShow.com. Lots of original designs there for T-shirts, hoodies, phone cases, coffee mugs, that kind of stuff. And don't forget to like us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Follow us on Twitter @OnTheMoveShow, and subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. So, let's go ahead and dive right into these featured topics. First and foremost, we have Representative John Lewis talking about how he's not going to attend Trump's inauguration. So let's go ahead and lead with that.
You have forged relationships with many presidents. Do you plan on trying to forge a relationship with Donald Trump?
You know, I believe in forgiveness. I believe in trying to work with people. It's going to be hard. It's going to be very difficult. I don't see this president-elect as a legitimate president.
You do not consider him a legitimate president. Why is that?
I think the Russians participated in helping this man get elected, and they helped destroy the candidacy of Hillary Clinton. I don't plan to attend the inauguration. It would be the first one that I miss since I've been in the Congress. You cannot be at home with something that you feel that is wrong.
That's going to send a big message to a lot of people in this country that you don't believe he's a legitimate president.
I think there was a conspiracy on the part of the Russians and others to help him get elected. That's not right. That's not fair. That's not the open democratic process.
So let me just recap some of the things that he said. First of all, John Lewis says he believes in forgiveness. He believes in trying to work with people. Okay, so he's going to illustrate his belief, his strongly held belief in this, by not working with people. Okay, not even attending the inauguration. He says that it's, he can't go along with it because it just doesn't feel right. You shouldn't do things, according to him, that don't feel right. Okay, all right, I can understand. He's a free person, by the way. He has every right to not go if he doesn't want to go. I'm not knocking him for using his freedom of association. As you all know, I believe that is a beautiful freedom. He doesn't want to be associated with Donald Trump. He doesn't want to support Donald Trump's inauguration. More power to him. Now, where I do have an issue here is two places. First of all, he doesn't believe that Donald Trump is the legitimate president of the United States, or the president-elect of the United States. Which, first of all, let me just state a fact here. Donald Trump is the legitimate president-elect. He won the election fair and square. In fact, after several recounts, he even came out even better in many places where they were recounting. He ended up gaining votes during recounts. There is no evidence whatsoever that Russia hacked any voting machines, any systems inside our electoral, voting machines, anything like that. There's no evidence whatsoever of anything like that happened, despite the fact that the media has been hammering this, trying to make a perception that the electoral systems have been compromised. And to include, by the way, Hillary Clinton saying pretty much that exact thing. I think I had that covered on one of our recent episodes of Hillary Clinton saying that exact thing. Let me see if I can find that clip. I'm looking through. It's not instantly accessible. I'll get it again here a little later in the show. But the point is that the election was not stolen. The election was not hacked. What was hacked was the Democrats' computers. And the Democrats were extremely careless with their computers. The DNC, they did not spend money to upgrade their security, to take the proper cybersecurity steps necessary to secure their system. And as a result, they were compromised by the Russians. Of course, if you're going to lay down a red carpet and open up the freaking doors and all the windows, somebody's going to poke their head in. And that's exactly what happened. And the issue isn't the fact that they got hacked. If they got hacked, it wouldn't have been a big deal. The issue is what they got caught talking about in their emails. What they were doing. If they weren't caught with anything, if they didn't have their hand caught in the cookie jar, if there wasn't, first of all, inside the DNC showing the correspondence between Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the rest of the DNC talking about their preference for Hillary Clinton, showing that election, that primary was completely unfair. If that wasn't hacked and shown to the world, that wouldn't have been a problem. If they had nothing to hide, then there wouldn't have been anything to gain from this hack. However, they were being corrupt. They were trying to tip the scales in favor of Hillary Clinton. And by the way, not just the DNC. He talked about, John Lewis talked about a conspiracy. Now this is interesting. Of course, the Russians would perceive Donald Trump as something less threatening to them because he hasn't been making threats to them, first of all, unlike Hillary Clinton. And secondly, he's been talking about dismantling these big international agreements that, in many cases, are set to control hegemonic power, to make sure that the world is able to fight back against a bad actor. That's NATO, those kind of things. And Trump has already been saying that he wants to dismantle NATO, or at least restructure it and take another look at it. So, of course, Putin, being the guy that he is, would want to. Again, he's an ex-KGB. He's a very smart guy. I believe he's a lawyer, if I'm not mistaken. But he's also, wanting to put the Soviet Union back together, to reassemble Soviet might, and to be able to project the Russian government, his force, outward and do what he wants. And he's not able to do that with a hegemonic power like the United States, combined with NATO, stopping him and being willing and able, first of all, to prevent him and fight back against stuff. So all he can do is bite around the edges and do things kind of underhanded, like he did in the Ukraine with Crimea. Syria is another story, though. Syria, Russia was invited in. They were invited in by the Syrian government. So that's an entirely different issue. But now the Russians are trying to gain a foothold in the Middle East. And to be honest, I think underneath President Trump, I think that there will be, some success with that on that front. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. Again, I think it's my opinion that we shouldn't really care what's going on in the Middle East, and we should get energy independent. This should be our primary goal, not just a matter of being able to have cheap energy here, but as far as national security. And more importantly, if we stop buying foreign oil, a lot of our enemies won't have money to fund attacks over here. They will stop being so freaking wealthy, and it'll cause calamity over there. Yeah, but look, we can only worry about our stuff, and we have to take responsibility for ourselves. It's unsafe for us to continue to be so dependent on other nations, and especially being that those other nations are incredibly there's so much chaos over there. There's so many bad things that are happening on that side of the world. There's so much conflict over there. It's unstable. So I find it interesting that John Lewis mentions the conspiracy with Russia because, of course, Russia's going to prefer Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton because it serves their interest. You can count on Russia, Vladimir Putin, to do what's in their best interest. If anything, they're reliable in regards to that. They're going to do what's beneficial to them, as per any human being is going to do what is in their own best interest. This is why foreign policy, it's extremely complicated, because you can't get caught down or like caught up on this whole the friendships with other nations. Yes, it's great. It's great to be friendly with other nations, but as our founders warned, we have to be incredibly careful and beware of foreign entanglements. We don't want to create alliances with nations who may not necessarily have our best interest at heart. And again, every nation has their own best interest at heart. They're always going to look out for themselves first. So if they have some kind of incentive to do something that's going to screw us over, we have to count on that they're probably going to do that. So we can't get all tied down on having foreign friends. Look, what we need to have is a trust but verify kind of policy. They do stuff that and look, I don't want to get stuck in a strategic alliance with somebody who's going to act against us, and I don't want to get caught in a strategic alliance with somebody who won't fight for us. If we're the only ones expected to fight, that's not fair. It doesn't make sense. So the conspiracy, though, side of this that John Lewis talks about, the conspiracy with Russia to essentially, again, making it out to, like Russia hacked the election, which again, maybe Russia influenced, if we can even say that. But everybody influences. I'm influencing right now. I'm talking to you. Maybe I'm having a positive or negative influence. I could be having the opposite influence. You could be disagreeing with everything I'm saying and go the exact opposite way. Everything influences the election. Everything. So it's not a crime to influence the election. It is a crime to hack. They should be punished for that, I think, and we should have a response, at least, I think. Again, I don't think that we should be taking away sanctions from Russia. I think showing weakness to this country, to Vladimir Putin, is dangerous, because they do respond to strength, and that's all they respond to. So I don't want to get in a war with Russia either, and I want to be very careful about drawing red lines. But since we're talking about conspiracies, let's talk about one that John Lewis didn't seem to care about. Didn't seem to bother him that there was a conspiracy in this regard. Hillary Clinton was getting the questions, the questions during the debates, prior to the debates. That was caught. That has been exposed. So if anybody was involved in trying to influence the election, and it's probably why the media has lost so much credibility. I mean, it's one of the many reasons why the media has lost so much credibility, is because they were trying to fix the election for Hillary Clinton in by giving her the answers to the freaking questions. When I was watching the debates, I think it was the second debate, if I'm remembering correctly, Hillary Clinton was asked, say something nice about Donald Trump, and she chose to say something nice about his kids, which was still basically a knock against him because she couldn't say anything about him. But she looped it in and said, okay, well, this might say something about how he raises children, so he may be a good father or something along those lines because he's got some good kids. But she didn't say anything about him. And then the question went to Donald Trump, and he actually said nice things about her. And it was... while I'm watching this, I'm like, it's like they planned this. And then they went out. That was the end of the debate. Credits roll. Ends with Donald Trump saying nice things about Hillary Clinton and Hillary Clinton trashing him by only complimenting his parenting skills, and because she can't come up with anything else about it. I think that was planned. I think they got the questions ahead of time, and they planned it. I think that's why it went down like that. And you know what? I mean, I could be wrong, but regardless... The media has been caught red-handed. And again, most of these media outlets, MSNBC, CNN, Huffington Post, these are all in the tank for the Democrats. So, if there's a real conspiracy, that's the one that we should be talking about, is the media continuing to just hammer on the Republicans, Donald Trump, and to basically, again, I've told you before. I have mentioned this before in the past. You have heard nothing from Code Pink, the anti-war activist during 8 years of an Obama administration, 8 years of Democrat reign. And now, I will make the prediction again. I will say it again. I think that Code Pink and the left, all of their, the Occupy Wall Street, all of these Black Lives Matter, all of these organizations are going to come spooling up, and we're going to see non-stop civil unrest, I believe, underneath the Donald Trump presidency. I think these protests are going to continue to get out of hand, continue to get violent, and I think it will only grow from there, because this sentiment that Donald Trump is illegitimate, which is false, completely a lie. He won the election fair and square. It's being encouraged. This episode is titled Divided We Fall. I don't understand how we're going to come together if all we're going to do is rip each other apart when we do. We don't listen to each other. We don't talk to each other. We talk at each other. We're not talking back and forth and having, engaging conversations. And I'm not talking about everybody, by the way. The vast majority of you out there, MacPack, you're the tip of the spear. The vast majority of you out there are decent people. You just want to live your life and not be messed with. And I understand the anger that you might feel when somebody tries to tell you, how to live your life, and people that are going to vote for Democrats who are going to, pass a gun law to restrict your right to bear arms. I understand the anger behind that. But we have to, if we're going to pull ourselves out of this, come together. We have to figure out how to talk to each other. And honestly, I think we as right-leaning, people on the right. I personally myself am a libertarian in philosophy, a little L libertarian with some conservative leanings. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a conservative. That's where I stand. And I disagree with both sides of the aisle. That's where I am. I'm in between. I'm against the war on drugs. I'm for personal responsibility. I'm for small government. That kind of thing. I just don't want to turn every single problem that I see in the government or in our world. I look through from the lens of a libertarian, applying the non-aggression principle. How can we fix this? How can we respond to this? Or how can we dampen the negative effects of this situation by applying the NAP, the non-aggression principle? And I ultimately come to a solution that I think will work without forcing people to do things against their will. And believe me, I get the idea of being angry when somebody wants to use government to force you to do something. But I think it's time that we try to soften our approach. I think it's time that we because right now, everybody on the right, anybody who voted for Donald Trump is being compared to Nazis. If you voted for Donald Trump, Democrats think you're a Nazi. Automatically. A white supremacist, KKK, white nationalist. Now, granted, there is an element that voted for Donald Trump that is that. And I've argued it's a fringe element. We're talking about the alt-right. And I think that it's... And by the way, Donald Trump has specifically said this is not a part of the party that he wants to energize. He doesn't want to energize the alt-right. I'm going to take the guy at his word for now. I haven't seen him do anything other than not wanting to... or saying that he didn't know the Grand Wizard of the KKK. I can't remember his name right now. I think it was David Duke. He didn't want to condemn his endorsement, but he was saying after the fact that he didn't understand what they were talking about. He had like a headpiece issue. So look, I'm gonna take the guy at his word. I'm just gonna and until I see anything racist that Donald Trump does, or if he starts, turning his alt-right people into, instead of brown shirts, like Trump red hats or something, out there beating people up and becoming violent. I've yet to see that. The only thing I've seen is him saying knock people out who are throwing tomatoes and inciting some violence at his rallies, which can be taken out of context, I know. And I also don't know what was happening before that. But I think that was a bad decision on his part. But I don't see racism behind it. Again, I think, and many of you are going to disagree with me, and that is completely cool. This is the whole beautiful part about liberty, about having your own freedom, taking your own personal responsibility, is that we can make up our own minds and we can disagree on things, and we don't have to get angry at each other. We can just hear each other out and understand each other's point of view. You probably have a different point of view than me, and I hope so, because I want to hear it. So, but I think that Donald Trump is more along the lines of like a mobster. Now, I know many of you aren't going to agree with me on that. I think that he's been colluding with the government his entire life. His money that he received from his father, I don't look. He makes it out like that's not a whole lot of money. He received $1 million right off the bat. I've never seen $1 million, so I can't relate to that. But I don't think you can say that you start from humble beginnings and you build up this behemoth and claim that you're the greatest businessman on the planet when you were given $1 million from your father and then you used government force and collusion using crony capitalism to get things done in your business. I don't think that makes you a particularly smart businessman. It just means you have friends in high places and you know how to grease the right palms. That is not a smart businessman. That's a crook. That's the way I see it. So, I didn't want to turn into a bash session on Trump, but that's it. That's the way I see it. So I'm just concerned about, during the Donald Trump presidency, what are things that are going to happen? We're going to talk about that later in the show. But let's move back to the John Lewis thing here. The interviewer, the reporter for MSNBC NBC News that was interviewing him, I can't remember his name. He said this is going to send a big message. John Lewis not attending this inauguration is going to send a big message. And my question to you is, to the Democrats out there, what do you think that the message will be? MacPack, what do you think Democrats are going to receive from this message by John Lewis and 20-something more Democrats not attending the inauguration? I would argue that the message they're going to receive is that Donald Trump is illegitimate and they should continue opposing his presidency, not his policies, not what he's trying to do in government, but his presidency. And I argue that that is something that we need to speak out against, but not forcefully. I think we need to talk to the Democrats in our life. If you know somebody, we need to talk with them and first just listen. Listen to their point of view, hear them out completely. And maybe not even try to talk with them that day, but over a series of weeks, even months, start talking to them and ask them what they think about things. And then if you hear them saying something that's false, like Donald Trump is an illegitimate president, that he stole the election, that Russia hacked the electoral systems to get him elected, if you hear things like that, make sure that, you're not being aggressive with it. Just make sure that you correct the record and show them. Don't just say, hey, this is what happened. Show them the proof. There's lots of articles online that you can show about that. The information's out there. So I think if we soften our approach, we might be able to bridge that divide. And I'm really concerned about us being this divided, because right now we're not talking about the things that we should be. We're talking about Trump. And by the way, I'm so sick of talking about Donald Trump. I'm just tired of it, honestly. I'm getting burnt out by all the Trump trauma. So I want us to stop talking about Trump and start talking about these big ideas that we can do to make both sides happy. And I'm not talking about compromising our values. I'm talking about dismantling the government so that no one is being forced to do something against their will. I think if we can explain it in that way, because right now all of my Democrat friends are scared out of their freaking mind that Donald Trump is elected. This isn't the way it should be. One man should not have this much of an influence on your life. But anyway, we're going to cut to a commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk more about John Lewis and these Democrats who aren't showing up to the inauguration of Donald Trump. And we have a lot of other stuff on the agenda. You guys don't want to go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bear Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On the Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On the Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, we're back. Thanks for sticking with us through the break. So, when we last left, we were talking about Representative John Lewis. He's not going to be attending Trump's inauguration. So, I have some other stuff on this here. I've got... wow, this one's a crazy one here. John Lewis is really not a fan of Donald Trump here. He wouldn't even invite him to visit Selma with him. Here's an article on Huffington Post, article titled, John Lewis wouldn't invite Donald Trump to visit Selma with him. The article is written by Julia Craven, and it was written on the 15th of 2017 of this month. So that was today. Okay, so the article reads, Representative John Lewis has made it very clear that he is not a fan of President-elect Donald Trump, so much so that he wouldn't even invite him to visit Selma, Alabama with him. I would not invite him to come, Lewis said during a wide-ranging interview with Meet the Press on Sunday. In 1965, Lewis, a civil rights icon whose work led to the passage of the Voting Rights Act of that year, was badly beaten on Edmund Pettus Bridge during Bloody Sunday. He often visits the city with politicians from both parties and has even been there with Vice President-elect Mike Pence, President Barack Obama, and George W. Bush. went to visit Selma with Lewis and others to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday in 2015. Lewis said on Sunday that he would not try to stop a Trump visit, and that maybe the president-elect would leave Selma better off than when he came. Well, by going to Selma, like President Bush, President Clinton, President Obama, maybe he would learn something, Lewis said. Maybe he would get religion. Lewis and Trump have been sparring with each other since last week. On Friday, the civil rights icon said Trump is not a legitimate president based on reports of Russian interference in the 2016 election. Again, you see how they squeeze that in? Based on reports of Russian interference in the 2016 election. They just leave it like that. So now anyone reading this article is like, oh, whoa, Russia interfered with the election. How does that happen? What did they do? What kind of interference? So again, this is the way that the media will spin it without lying to you necessarily. Russian interference. How did they interfere? That they hacked the DNC and Podesta's emails. And we can argue that because of Guccifer, I believe is the hacker's name, that hacked Podesta's email, and that's how we found out about Clinton's private email server. All of this stuff is all linked into this. It's all about emails that were hacked and released, and the reason why it was even considered Russian interference is because those emails that were released were devastating. They showed what the Democrats do, that they're liars, that they're corrupt, that it's all rigged. This is the point. But no, based on reports of Russian interference in the election, you just leave all the other details out and make people think that Russia hacked some kind of election system. And they've reported on that kind of crap. They've reported on Hillary Clinton saying this stuff. Anyway, he added that he will not attend Trump's inauguration, making it the first one he's missed since his election to Congress in 1986. Trump responded to Lewis via Twitter saying the civil rights legend is all talk, 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 no action. So they have a picture here of him getting beaten on Bloody Sunday. Lewis told Meet the Press host Chuck Todd, that's who he was talking with, that it would be almost impossible for him to work with Trump since he does not see the president-elect's win as legitimate. These are dangerous times we're getting in, folks. When we don't accept the president, when we just don't accept it. Again, it's one thing to not accept the policies. I do not accept Obamacare. I do not accept redistribution of wealth. I do not accept, heavy-handed totalitarianism, telling people how to live their life, what they can do, what you can produce, what you can do with your private property, that kind of thing. I don't accept that, but I accept the legitimacy of Barack Obama's presidency. I accepted it then. I accept it now. How about we get a little bit of the same coming from the left? It's unbelievable. It's unfreaking believable. Later in the interview, Lewis said he agrees with Senator John McCain of Arizona, who proposed establishing a special committee to investigate allegations of Russian interference in the election. Look, I'm all for that too. Go ahead. Investigate. What did they do? But let's be very clear that it was not a electoral system. Is not a voting machine. Russia did not hack in and start changing votes. Let's be clear and not portray it in a way that is biased. Todd asked what, if anything, Trump could do to get Lewis to work with him. Lewis says, I've had an opportunity to meet with every president since President Kennedy except President Nixon. I met with President Nixon when he was outside of the White House, and it's painful. It's hard. It's difficult to see our country come to where it is today, Lewis said. There's a whole body of people in America today that believe there was a conspiracy, a deliberate, systematic effort to destroy the Clinton candidacy and place this person in the White House. Lewis continued. There were outside forces. So they end on that. They just leave it like that. Let the conspiracy roll. Nobody's countering that. Good work, HuffPo. Good work, Huffington Post. You just continue to throw out this slosh. This is gross. This is garbage. This is the dregs of online journalism. Way to go, HuffPo. Way to go. So all of this can be rebuffed. All of this can be refuted, but yet they don't even bother to write one stinking sentence to counteract this conspiracy. So, it's interesting that the left, they kept chewing us out all these 8 years of the presidency of Obama. There we go. Sorry, having a brain fart. During this entire Obama administration period, we have been talking about things like Operation Fast and Furious, Hillary Clinton's email server scandal. We've been talking about scandal after scandal, the Iran deal, all of these things, and we're saying this is an agenda. There is an agenda. Over and over and over again, we're saying that, and they call us conspiracy theorists. But now who's openly embracing conspiracy theories? The left. Now they're the conspiracy theorists, and theirs aren't even borne out with the facts, because the facts don't matter. Again, the media has been forcing us through this last couple month and a half, saying about fake news. This is what they've been shoving down our throat, and they're pumping out garbage like this. It's unfreaking believable. And here, here's the thing: how can you work with people, that wouldn't even invite Donald Trump, by the way, to Selma? This guy says he believes in forgiveness, John Lewis, which, by the way, before I rip into this some more, I just want to tear into John Lewis some more. I think this guy is a jerk, and I'm sorry. I know he's a civil rights icon. I know people have a lot of respect for him. I have zero respect for him. I respect what he did when he did it, but he's not the man he was then. I think the man that he was then would be disgusted with the man that he is now. This guy has advocated for coming after civil rights. This is a statist progressive sitting in Congress right now. All right, how the hell can you go from being a freedom rider, just wanting the freedom to do what you want to do, and not have, not be attacked by the government, not have sheriffs send attack dogs to maul you in the street, throw you out of a diner for having the audacity to sit in the white only section. This man did some very heroic things, but it wasn't in the name of freedom. At least it doesn't seem like it now, because he doesn't seem to give a crap about freedom. He's talking about restricting freedom. Every time he talks about a new gun law, every time he talks about entitlement programs, which are redistribution of wealth, and it is a form of institutionalized slavery. Every time he talks about this, he's speaking against liberty. He's speaking against civil rights. He's for Obamacare. Obamacare is a restriction of your liberty. You get penalized for not buying a product. You get taxed for not having something that you couldn't afford in the first place. Plus, it's redistribution of wealth. I'm sorry, I got a little bit of beef with Representative John Lewis. I don't revere him like so many others do. I think Dr. King would be rolling in his grave right now if he saw what this man has become. I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but I don't care. This is just ridiculous. The flip that this guy has done, and this goes to show you, anybody who goes to Congress, anybody who goes to Washington, does not come out of there a better person. This guy's been in office since '86. He's probably just as corrupt as all these other people. Has forgotten who he was when he came in and why he decided to run for office. Continuing to advocate for progressive statism, more government. Anyway, so let's move on. Let's just go ahead and move to something else here. Let's go to Krauthammer talking about John Lewis. Here's a clip from Krauthammer.
And what Congressman John Lewis said today that seems to be something that perhaps other Democrats are saying. You foreshadowed this yesterday in your comments about all this.
Look, I don't know whether it's actually orchestrated, that this is all scripted and one at a time, with John Lewis being sort of the conscience of the Democratic Party speaking and being the one to kick off the idea. But, this is a lot of coincidences at once. Look, the Democrats had this period of about a month and a half where they were so stunned by their loss, probably the most surprising in our lifetime, that they were literally speechless. Now they seem to have found a way to deal with it, which is to say it was a stolen election. They start with Putin, and that's, the idea of having this entire probe, Obama demanding a report before he leaves office, obviously to put it on the table. And now all of a sudden the IG wants to look into what Comey did. Comey clearly is anathema to both sides. He clearly, whether he has a political agenda or not, he made one mistake after another. But the Democrats want to have at least two reasons outside of themselves to say why it was a rigged election, which of course is highly ironic because that was the Trump charge during the campaign. And this is a part of it. That IG story, there'll be hearings on Comey. We will rehash all this again and again. And for the Democrats, that's their way of diminishing Trump from the beginning. I'm not sure it's going to work. I don't think it's going to work. I think people have a sense you win the election. The Electoral College was a pretty wide margin. You get sworn in and that's it. But what else are the Democrats going to do? They've been decimated.
So, yeah, I mean, honestly, I do agree with Krauthammer. And what else are they going to do? They're trying to... this is all politics. That's what this is right now. This is all politics. They're trying to come up with an excuse. Again, this is the one thing that the Democrats and Republicans just have total disagreement on, is the concept of personal responsibility. They're not going to take Democrats. They don't believe in personal responsibility. And even still, by the way, Republicans, I'm not calling them angels. They don't take personal responsibility. Everybody in government shifts blame to somebody else. So they don't want to take the blame. They're playing the blame game. This is always what happens. But the issue here is that personal responsibility is not part of the platform of the Democrats. So they're not going to be held responsible like the Republicans would be for blaming other people. I mean, that's just part of their MO. Again, they're Democrats are not about personal responsibility. And I just find it so funny. I guess it's not really funny. It's just more sad than anything. But again, we're hearing the left talk about how they're not accepting the results of this presidency. Here's Morning Joe. I've played this clip before, but it bears repeating. Here's Morning Joe calling out. This is an older clip, so it's not even in response to the stuff that they're talking about now, which has gone so far beyond the pale, beyond what they were talking about them just questioning the election results or whatever. Now, because before they were talking about recounts. Now the recounts are over. They still don't accept it. They're calling him illegitimate because of Russia. Here's Morning Joe calling out the media.
Presidential election recount. Green Party candidate Jill Stein initiated the recount after saying there was evidence of hacking. In a statement, Donald Trump responded saying the people have spoken and the election is over. And as Hillary Clinton herself said on election night, in addition to her conceding by congratulating me, we must accept this result and then look to the future. But Hillary Clinton has formally joined the recount efforts, with campaign counsel Mark Elias saying they had quietly explored the possibility of outside interference in the vote tally. Quote, because we have not uncovered any actionable evidence of hacking or outside attempts to alter the voting technology, we had not planned to exercise this option ourselves. But now that a recount has been initiated in Wisconsin, we intend to participate in order to ensure the process proceeds in a manner that is fair to all sides.
Wait, what's that mean?
Well, they're helping.
But I thought that he had Donald Trump. But if Donald Trump didn't, I read all the editorials that said that if Trump left his options open, that he was undermining American democracy.
Well,
is this?
Here's
undermining American
Here's what he said about accepting.
I don't want to tell my kids that undermined American democracy is being...
Well, at one point, here's what he said about accepting the outcome of the election back on October 20th. Remember this?
Yeah.
Of course, I would accept a clear election result, but I would also reserve my right to contest or file a legal challenge in the case of a questionable result.
Reserve his vote. The criticism for Trump.
So reserve his right.
Yes.
Gun reserve his right.
There's a lot of criticism.
Oh, really?
There were a lot of critics about that. Okay, and look, I don't have any problem if you're following the law. If you want to continue to do recounts and things like that until it gets to a certain point where recounts have been done, how much more can you do? And I understand criticizing him for not accepting results, if in fact they've gone all the way through. And I believe that we'd be hearing, a lot of the same stuff on Donald Trump's side, by the way. I'm not calling him an angel. Let me just be clear. I think if Donald Trump won, he'd be calling it a rigged election. He was doing it before the election was even over. So I have no doubt that he would have been, because this is not Donald Trump's MO to lose. All right, that's not what he likes to do. He doesn't believe himself to be a loser. So he's going to come up with an excuse. People who are bad losers will come up with excuses. I believe Donald Trump is a bad loser. That's just my opinion. Because, again, he's used the coercive force of government to ensure that he doesn't lose in his business dealings. He's tried to use eminent domain to take people's property away from them by force. But I digress. So let's hear some of the things that were said about Donald Trump not accepting the election results. Here they are.
For those comments and his statement during the debate, columnist Dana Milbank wrote, "The refusal to accept this bedrock principle of democracy was shocking."
Okay, but wait.
Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi declared,
"Leave open his option to do what Hillary Clinton's doing right now."
Donald Trump once again threatened the foundation of American democracy itself.
Wait again. So
that was Nancy Pelosi.
American democracy is threatened by leaving open the option?
Senator John McCain said, "A concession isn't just an exercise in graciousness, it's an act of respect for the will of the American people."
I've got vertigo.
Andrew Sullivan wrote, "His refusal to accept the results of this election disqualifies him automatically from any office in the United States."
So that should apply right to all of the Democrats who aren't accepting this result. So all 20-something, and we're going to get to that story here in a second, all 20-something that aren't going to show up to the inauguration. This is Andrew Sullivan, New York Magazine, again, left-wing magazine. More from it, more quotes.
Dizzy, I'm about to fall out of my chair. So I'm just curious, what did Bill Daley say?
Former White House Chief of Staff Bill Daley said he really has no appreciation for our history, which most of the world looks at with great admiration.
But at least he didn't
as
say
opposed
it's like
to
a
some banana republic.
Oh, he did. But Hillary Clinton, you know that Hillary Clinton, who's now doing this, she left open her options. She said, "No problem leaving open your options. You got to leave open your options."
No,
legally.
She was very upset. She said this at the time.
He refused to say that he would respect the results of this election. Now, make no mistake, by doing that, he is threatening our democracy.
I'm sorry. Okay, hold on.
Please
Hold on, that's funny.
Joe.
Hold on.
Stop.
All right,
Joining us now.
hold on. No, he's threatening our democracy if he does exactly what she's doing on September 28th.
And September 28th seems so far away now that it's January 15th, 2017. But let's just point out, they're doing the same things, if not worse. Not only are they not just accepting the results, they're legitimately calling him an illegitimate president. This is what they're doing. They are, in their own words, threatening, well, I wouldn't say democracy because we're not a democracy, threatening the republic. Again, that's just one of my things, and I really think we should push hard on that. We should press them on that issue, the democracy versus republic thing. They continue, and I know these people know better. I know the people in the media know that we're a republic. They have to. It's so simple. But yet they're purposefully and willfully changing it to a democracy because they believe in mob rule, and they believe that it'll benefit them in the end. It's populism. That is essentially what it is, populism. So let's go to here we go. Here's the list of people who are not going to be attending the inauguration. This is thehill.com article is titled "Whip-List Democrats Boo Trump's Inauguration." Article written by Christina Marcos, dated on the 13th of January. Okay. A growing number of Democrats are saying they won't watch President-elect Donald Trump take the oath of office next week. The majority of Democrats plan to attend the inauguration and hold up the tradition of watching the peaceful transfer of power regardless of party, but after an exceptionally divisive election, some are breaking with the norm. As January 20th draws near, can you believe it's almost January 20th, first of all? This is crazy. This year has just flown by. Anyway, as January 20th draws near, 22 Democrats have announced they'll boycott the inauguration. Here's a running list of those who are skipping the event. Representative Luis Gutierrez from Illinois. Gutierrez was the first lawmaker to say he'd boycott Trump's inauguration. Instead, he plans to attend the anti-Trump Women's March on Washington on January 21st. He says, I cannot go to the inauguration of a man who's going to appoint people to the Supreme Court and turn back the clock on women and turn back the clock on immigrants and the safety and freedom that we fought for them, he said on CNN's New Day in December. Okay. So Representative John Conyers from Michigan, Conyers, the longest-serving member of the House, won't be attending the inauguration. A spokeswoman confirmed on January 14th. Conyers is a founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus and has served in the House since 1965. This guy's got to go. He's got to go. 65? That's just crazy. That's just unbelievable. Seriously, we need some freaking term limits on Congress. This is all I'm saying. We need some term limits. Please get these guys out of here. If you're in government for more than a decade, you don't need to be in government anymore. You need to be gone. You need to be gone. All right. Representative Catherine Clark from Massachusetts. Clark said she felt her presence at Trump's inauguration would serve as part of the normalization of Trump's actions. She says, I had hoped the president-elect would use the transition period in his appointments to change course and fulfill his promise to be a president for all Americans. However, this has not been the case, Clark said in a statement on January 5th. After discussion with hundreds of my constituents, I do not feel that I can contribute to the normalization of President-elect divisive rhetoric by participating in the inauguration. Divisive rhetoric, like not accepting the president, the results of an election. Okay, all right. Representative Jared Huffman from California, in a Facebook post on January 7th, Huffman said he would ordinarily attend a presidential inauguration, regardless of which party was assuming power in the White House. However, and here comes the however, there is nothing ordinary about this inauguration or the man that will be sworn in as our next president. I do accept the election results. Well, thank goodness somebody does over there, and support the peaceful transition of power. But it is here's another but here. Here it comes. But it is abundantly clear to me that with Donald Trump as our president, the United States is entering a dark and very dangerous political chapter, Huffman said. Okay, I will do everything I can to limit the damage and the duration of his chapter, and I believe we can get through it, he added. No, I do too. I don't think that Donald Trump is going to be the best president. I don't think that he's going to be a small government guy. I think he's going to continue to look for big government solutions. But I do believe that we can get through it. He added, this is Jared Huffman, Representative Jared Huffman, I will not sit passively and politely applause as it begins. Okay. Representative Barbara Lee from California. Lee said she was disappointed Trump didn't try to unify the country after running one of the most divisive campaigns in American history. I would disagree. I think he did try to do things like, first of all, he essentially condemned the alt-right. He said he didn't want to energize that segment of the party. He's also, again, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. Don't carry water for the man. But he's also said that he wants to be everybody's president. And we'll see. But that still remains to be seen what he's going to be doing. But she's saying that he's not trying to do that. Donald Trump, her words, Donald Trump has proven that his administration will normalize the most extreme fringes of the Republican Party. He's already said he doesn't want to energize that. So I disagree, but okay. Lee said in a statement on January 12th, on Inauguration Day, I will not be celebrating. I will be organizing and preparing for resistance. Okay, Representative, I'm not going to read all these here. Representative Raw Grahalvs. Sorry, I can't read this. I know this H is supposed to, or this J is supposed to be an H, I think. Gridjalv. I don't know how you say that. He's not going to do it out of Arizona. Representative John Lewis, Representative Mark D. Saulnier, Representative Lacey Clay from Montana, Representative Earl Blumenthal from Oregon, Representative Kurt Schrader from Oregon, Representative Jose Serrano from New York, Representative Nadia Valesquez from New York, Representative Mark Tanako from California, Representative Ted Lieu from California, Representative Yvette Clark from New York, Representative Judy Chu from California, Representative Maxine Waters from California, Representative Mark Pocan from Wisconsin, Representative Marcia Fudge from Ohio, Representative Pramila Jayapal from Washington, and Representative Andriano Espaliet. I think I got that right. Anyway, all these people not showing up to the inauguration from the Democrats. Again, they're the very ones that said not accepting the election results would threaten democracy. But yet, they're not consistent with their own values, with their own things that they say. So I digress. But anyway, that will conclude the first hour of the program. We're going to cut to a commercial break. When we come back, I have a couple more things that I want to talk about here. I want to move on to Chicago gun violence and gun laws, and Michael Moore claiming that Democrats aren't as brazen as Republicans and that they just don't fight back like Republicans do. Republicans just don't care, according to Michael Moore. We're going to talk about that when we come back. You guys don't want to go anywhere, and we'll be right back.
Have you visited the On the Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bear Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On the Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support. Are you an activist who needs affordable flyers or brochures for passing out literature? Or a political candidate who's looking for business cards, logo designs, yard signs, or vehicle decals? Email me, Latasha Worley, for all your graphic design needs at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com. And don't forget to mention On the Move to get a 10% discount on all graphic design services.
This is Dan Sandini of DaylightDisinfectant.com, citizen journalist, friend of the late Andrew Breitbart, and cohort of James O'Keefe. I listen to On the Move with Mac Worley because the only time he's wrong is when he disagrees with me.
I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, pledging my life, my fortune, and my sacred honor. So help me God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Welcome to On the Move.
All right, we're back. Welcome to the second hour of the program. I appreciate you all sticking with us. If you made it this far in the program, please feel free to share it out. Share it with your friends, your family. Say, hey, I'm listening to this guy, Mac Worley. He does this show. I think you'll like it. Check it out. I would certainly appreciate it. Also, if you made it this far, hit that like button. No matter what profile or what platform you're on, whether or not it's on Spreaker, whether or not it's on YouTube, whether or not you're listening on iTunes, all that stuff. I would certainly appreciate your feedback, your comments. Also, don't forget, you can get a hold of us. If you want to join today's conversation, please feel free. I'd rather have a dialogue with you than a monologue, so please feel free to give me a call. The number to the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. You can also get us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow or on Twitter @OnTheMoveShow. So, all right, without further ado, I want to get into our next feature topic, and in fact, I'm going to skip the Chicago violence for now. We'll come back to that, and I want to move on to Michael Moore's claims that Democrats aren't as brazen as Republicans, that the Republicans just don't care, and they'll just keep pushing and pushing, and they're trying to get their stuff done. Here is Michael Moore.
It's a good coming attraction to how the Republicans are going to use power in the next, not few years, few weeks and months. I have to say this. You have to admire conservatives and Republicans. They are so brazen. They don't care. They just go for it. This is just amazing that what you just showed. It was just amazing.
And what's amazing to me, Reverend Barber there, who I think is a man who is a pretty amazing organizer I've spent some time with, reported on. He does understand power. Yeah. But then you have the Democrats in the state assembly saying things like, essentially trying to shame them. It would be nice if we can get back to governing. Yeah. This is so non-bipartisan. Right. As opposed to understanding that what essentially is happening there is a very fundamental power.
Yeah, how come on my side of the political fence we don't have that sort of that courage of their convictions, the sort of decisiveness and the full speed ahead? I mean, seriously, just if tonight, if Donald Trump was ahead by 3 million votes, but Hillary was going to get the Electoral College on Monday, what do you think the Trump people and the Republicans would be doing?
The world will look very different, I agree. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And I don't mean that they would react violently. Right. I just mean they
lawsuits,
everything. They would throw everything at this. And what is our side?
There would have been no concession yet,
there would be no concession. But again, the Clinton campaign, everybody's trying to. President Obama wants to be the nice guy. Right. Everybody's and it's like this is not the time. This is serious stuff that's ahead of us here.
This story in Maine, goes with this as well. Governor LePage, they passed a minimum wage referendum that increased the minimum wage for tipped workers against the opposition of the sitting governor, Paul LePage. He announced today that he isn't going to instruct his Department of Labor not to enforce the law.
Right. Right.
And this is just and it does seem to me almost that this seems to me like edging into democratic crisis in a very profound way.
Absolutely. No, our democracy here.
But then but can you fight to restore democracy? The question becomes is do you fight fire with fire? Does that just restore democracy, or do you further degrade it if you do that?
No, you have to fight fire with fire. You absolutely have to. You can stay on the high road and fight at the same time. Unfortunately, the Democrats, my side, they're usually, whoa, wait a minute, that's not right. And then everybody goes into their depressive voice of, oh, wait a minute. It's like, no, come on, people, come on.
Speaking of the Democrats,
the tanks are 20 miles outside of Paris. Let's go. I mean, seriously.
Speaking of the Democrats and Democratic leadership, do you have the Secretary of Labor, Tom Perez, today announced he'll be running for DNC chair. Keith Ellison, one of the very few members of Congress to endorse Bernie Sanders in the primary, who's been endorsed both by Bernie and by Chuck Schumer. So sort of different wings of the party, I think it's fair to say. Do you have a preference in that race? Is there someone that you want to see lead the Democratic Party?
It should definitely be Keith Ellison. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. And not just because of the Bernie thing. I think we need new blood. We need young blood. We need this thing. God bless Nancy Pelosi. She's done so many great things, a historic figure. But to go with the same old, when we need new thinking, fresh blood, and a fight in us, a fight, and this is there's so many things that should be discussed right now. Here's something that's not even being discussed: the fact that the CIA has told us that they hacked both the DNC and the RNC, but only released the DNC, didn't release the RNC. One of the things that nobody's talking about is, well, clearly they have the goods on something or somebody there. Why do you want to risk a president in the White House that could be blackmailed by whatever they discovered at the RNC?
I will know.
All right. So first, he covered a lot there. Let me just comment on that last one here, and then we'll move into some of the other claims that he made. That Putin has a ton of information on the RNC. All right. Well, first of all, Reince Priebus is saying that they weren't hacked. I don't know what to believe, but here's the question: Do you believe that? I don't know what to believe. I don't think enough evidence has been released on that. I think that's a large accusation, a big leap to go to, without having any evidence to suggest that you're correct on that. I think this is in the ballpark of conspiracy theories. But moreover, let me just say, what could Vladimir Putin do that would change things for Donald Trump? What do you think would happen? I mean, what do you think that would be released that his supporters would change their mind? I don't think that any personal scandal about Donald Trump would be something that would change anything. Honestly, I just don't. And more importantly, if this information was obtained by the CIA, if the federal government somehow had information on Donald Trump or the RNC, if they had the goods, don't you think this would have been released instead of just the presumption of it? I think so. But I digress. One of the things that he claimed is that the Democrats, they just sit there and they act like, oh, whoa, this isn't right. And then he said, their depressive voice, and he said they're not actually doing anything, and that the Republicans just don't stop. They just don't care. They'll just keep pushing their agenda, which it's comical because that's a complete opposite of what they actually do. First of all, we've been dealing with the Obama administration, and during that time, the Republican Congress, we had both the House and the Senate. Before that, we didn't have the House. I'm sorry, we had the House. We didn't have the Senate. We ended up winning the House, and the whole time we have just the House. I'm sorry, I'm screwing this up. We started with the House of Representatives. We didn't have the Senate, and the whole time we had the House. They're saying we can't do anything until we get the Senate too. We got to get the Senate too. We got to get the Senate too. We're not going to fight anything. We're not going to do what we were elected to do. We're not going to try to obstruct what the Democrats are doing. Literally, they would not move on this until we got the Senate. What do? We elect Republicans in the Senate. They have a majority in the House and in the Senate now, and they say that they can't do anything until, guess what? They get the presidency. And then, now that we get the presidency, let's see what they do. I think that my guess is it's going to be wrong. I believe that what they're going to do, instead of dismantling the power, I believe they're going to use it to their own advantages. They're going to, because again, I don't think that these politicians have any issue with there being too much government power. I think that they want to be the ones in control of it, and the ones receiving the kudos for things that are being handed out from the government, like Obamacare, things like that. So, no, I don't think. I completely disagree with Michael Moore on that point that the Democrats aren't doing anything. Because let's look. First of all, the Republicans were feckless. We already know that they haven't done anything. They haven't done anything. Except for the bare minimum. And even that, there's been the whole thing about background check, or I'm sorry, not background checks, about people being denied guns who are on a no-fly list. They almost didn't even fight that. Too many people in the Republican Party even support that. Again, that's not just gun control. That's a violation of due process. So, and we've covered that extensively on the show. But let's just talk about some of the things that the Democrats have done, like shoving Obamacare through, a bill that completely hijacks a third of our freaking economy. All right, completely hijacks it and changes. Again, it's redistribution of wealth. It's continuing to add to massive debt that we have without a single Republican vote. Without a single Republican, they shove this through. Democrats, whoa, we don't do anything. We're just the underdogs here, guys. We're not really trying to force anybody to do something they don't want to do. Bull crap. These guys have been all about using the coercive force of government and every trick in the book. Then Obama, his administration participates in Operation Fast and Furious, where they knowingly allow guns to walk across the border, American guns to walk across the border, in an effort, I argue, to blame American guns on Mexican violence, cartel violence. They allowed it to happen, resulting in the death of Brian Terry, border agent. In addition to that, now we're being with the LGBT rights stuff. Look, and I'm all for people being able to do what they want to do. I don't have any issue what you do in your own bedroom or even out in public. Do what you want to do as long as you're not hurting others or taking their stuff. I don't care. But they're forcing the transgender bathroom issue. They're forcing people to make cakes for homosexuals when it violates their religious beliefs to participate in that ceremony. They're forcing this. Let's not even talk about the Harambe issue. Okay, if we're talking about how much the left has been aggressive, they're agitators. It's like a big pool of piranhas underneath you if you get in their sights, just chomping at the bit, waiting for you to fall in. Obama pushing climate change and more EPA regulation. And now, let's also talk about the ending of the filibuster. Oh yeah, the Democrats, they don't do anything. They really care about what everybody thinks. The Democrats, they care about everybody, but yet they remove the filibuster. And if you're not familiar with that, the filibuster is a rule in the Senate that allowed the minority to conduct a filibuster, where you basically use up all the time in the Senate to vote on something, and then no one can vote. So it's an obstructionist tool. And obstruction is great. If you don't want there to be obstruction in government, you're crazy. I'm sorry. You're crazy. I want the government moving as slow as possible so they can accomplish as little as possible. I want as many checks and balances in between my senators, my politicians, and what they can actually do. I want the minority to be able to throw giant wrenches in the cogs. I want it to grind to a screeching halt if there is not bipartisan support on an issue. That's what our founders wanted, by the way. That's why they set up the checks and balances. They don't want major changes to be able to be accomplished without bipartisan support. Obamacare, again, not a single Republican vote. Shouldn't have happened. Very divisive. The Republicans aren't to blame here. The Democrats have been extremely divisive. And Michael Moore tries to paint them out like these little innocent angels. And again, now, because of their divisiveness, now they have to live with the situations that they've created. They now have created a situation where minority has no say in Congress, in the Senate, by removing the filibuster option. They used the nuclear option. They got rid of it. This was the Democrats who did this. And here's Schumer, Representative Schumer, talking about, or actually I think he's in the Senate. I think it's Senator Schumer, talking about how they now have to live with that. And he regrets them imposing the filibuster. Here he is.
We'd be derelict in our responsibility to the American people if we just let's do all of these in a week and not ask them any tough questions.
But your hands are tied, because in the last Congress, your Democratic leadership, you were a part of it, changed the rules so that you only need 51 votes to confirm a nominee, not 60, and therefore you're living by your rules. Was that a mistake in retrospect?
I argued against it at the time. I said both for Supreme Court and in Cabinet should be 60, because on such important positions there should be some degree of bipartisanship. I won on Supreme Court, lost on Cabinet, but it's what we have to live with now.
Not the greatest situation when you're in the minority.
Wish it hadn't happened.
You wish it hadn't happened.
Yep.
You wish it wouldn't have happened. Well, I wish it wouldn't have happened too. I've been saying this from the beginning. When it happened, they were going to regret these systems that they were setting up, the power structure that they have set up. They create an imperial president. They create a Congress that is essentially beholden to the office of the presidency, that's essentially made themselves useless year after year, created a dangerous precedent for the president, and at the same time, they're restricting the voice of the minority within the bicameral institutions intended to have checks and balances. So, of course, yes, he regrets it. Because you didn't take the time, and I will tell you, if the Republicans fail to do this, we are in so much trouble, we can't even begin to express it here. If the Republicans fail to dismantle the power structure, which I argue they will not do, this will not happen. They're not going to go ahead and impose more checks and balances. They're not going to dismantle their own power, which would have bipartisan support. Can you imagine how much of a gap that would bridge if Republicans today are going through, line by line, basically trying to make them the majority have less power, trying to have less ability to get things done. Like right now, if we wanted, and I argue we should, to reinstitute the filibuster in the Senate. I know this isn't going to sound popular to Republicans because I know you want to get stuff done. I know you've had stuff shoved down your throat. I understand. I get it. I was there taking the licks with you. I was upset when they kept forcing us to do stuff or forcing things down our throat. We didn't want the programs, the policies that they were shoving down our throat, and they didn't even have a super majority. They didn't have 2/3 support to do it. They had 51 votes. 51 votes, man. And they force it on the minority. So if we want to really bridge a gap, if we want to end this divide, I think the way that we do this is we, instead of imposing our new policies, we dismantle the power structure. I've said this over and over and over again, and I think a key component to that is reinstituting the filibuster. There should not be a simple majority in the Senate that can allow things to happen for appointments. The Democrats have used this to pack the courts with liberal justices and judges up and down, and frankly, they've done a lot of damage. They have done a lot of damage, but we can't use what they did and just say, well, they did it to us, so let's do it back. It's not going to help us. It's not going to end this divide that we have. We're going to continue to get divided and further and further if we just use these powers that we have, that have really no checks on them. If we just use this to shove our policies down each other's throats, it will breed resentment. We can't do to them what they did to us. We have to adjust. We have to soften our approach. Otherwise, we'll never listen to each other. We may be talking at each other, but we're not listening. So I contend that they reinstitute the filibuster. Honestly, I would like to see the Constitution changed, honestly, to where you can't pass a law unless you have a supermajority. I don't want to see Congress doing anything unless they can get 60% of the people to agree on it. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear from you guys. Give us a call. The number of the show is 360-450-5625. Again, that's 360-450-5625. You can get us on Twitter at OnTheMoveShow. You can get us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and cut to a commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk about the Chicago violence and what I believe is the reason why they're having so much violence. And I want to talk about Martin O'Malley comparing Donald Trump and his supporters to Nazis and things to look out for during a Trump presidency. So we'll be right back after this break, folks. You don't want to go anywhere.
Hi, I'm Latasha Worley, and I work with candidates to creatively and effectively communicate their message to voters. I offer professional graphic design services, from yard signs to flyers, from logos to vehicle magnets. Email me today at latashaworley@gmail.com. That's LATOSHA Worley@gmail.com for a quote on items for your campaign. Have you visited the On the Move with Mac Worley store? We've got amazing original design t-shirts, hoodies, cell phone cases, and coffee mugs for sale at OnTheMoveShow.com. Just click the shop link on our homepage. You won't want to miss out on the iHeart Open Carry and Bear Arms t-shirts for only $20 plus shipping. Again, just go to OnTheMoveShow.com and click the shop link on our homepage. Your purchases will help make the On the Move show bigger and better. We appreciate your support.
Oath Keepers is a nonpartisan association of current active duty military, reserve, guard, veterans, peace officers, and firefighters who will fulfill the oath we swore, with the support of like-minded citizens who take an oath to stand with us, to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So help us God. Join us at oathkeepers.org.
Broadcasting from deep within the heartland of free America, where liberty still shines bright. You're listening to On the Move with Mac Worley III.
All right, we're back. Let's move on to our our next feature topic here: Chicago violence and gun laws. So I have an article here that I would like to read. This is from the Chicago Tribune. It's talking about how Chicago has been hit with the worst violence in nearly 20 years. And first of all, what should be noted is that there's a conflict going on right now in Chicago between the gangs. There's a lot of animosity between these Chicago gangs. I was going to have an expert on the show to talk about it today, but it fell through. But long story short, there's a lot of violence happening right now between these gangs. And this is peaked. This is the worst gun violence that they've seen in 20 years, 2 decades. The article here on the Chicago Tribune, again, at chicagotribune.com, few answers as Chicago hit with the worst violence in nearly 20 years. This article is written by Jeremy Gorner, and it was dated on 30th of 2016. The article reads, "It was movie night in DeMarco Kennedy's far south side apartment. The 32-year-old railroad worker's wife and 3 children waited for him in the living room with plans to watch the animated film Rio 2. He sat at his dining room table, paying bills. Then gunshots. Kennedy's kids, coached in the past by their wary parents, dropped to the floor. As the children attempted to crawl into the hallway, Kennedy's wife saw him fall over. The left side of his face was streaked with blood from a bullet wound. He was grabbing my hand real hard. He was trying to say something, and he couldn't." Nicole Cooper said Tuesday, recounting the August evening when her husband was slain. "And when he released my hand, that's when he passed. With a random bullet through the family's window, Kennedy became another homicide victim in Chicago. One more of 750 in 2016. 750 in 1 year in one city that has the most restrictive gun laws in the nation." The article continues. "A persistent reality for some in Chicago's toughest neighborhoods, violence unnerved far reaches of the city in 2016 as shootings and homicides soared. Not since the drug-fueled bloodshed of the mid-'90s had the city witnessed such a toll. Some neighborhoods already scarred and gutted by violence, or by years of violence, suffered inordinately, but the dangers spread into more neighborhoods too, and randomness became an all too familiar element to many shootings. Grim milestones added up. The deadliest month in 23 years, the deadliest day in 13 years, 4,300 people shot. Again, 750 killed. 4,300 people shot in 1 year in one city with the most restrictive gun laws in the nation. As the year wound down with the promise of a new year coming soon, a violent Christmas day. It's a shame, said Rafi Peterson, a community activist in Chicago Lawn community on the southwest side. Those lives cannot be replaced. How did this happen? Why is this continuing to happen? For months, police, politicians, and residents have asked the same questions. In a recent interview at police headquarters, Superintendent Eddie Johnson and his second-in-command First Deputy Superintendent Kevin Navarro speculated on the rise of homicides. They blamed in part a perceived willingness by criminals to settle disputes with guns, and what they say is a failure on the part of the justice system to hold them accountable. Man, oh man, have I been saying this? First of all, I just want to point out somebody who I was speaking with about the violence in Chicago. They know firsthand some of the people that are there, and they know how people are willing to settle disputes. It's amazing. I hadn't read this article before I spoke with that individual, and he said people out there will just shoot. They'll shoot you before they'll fight you, is what he said. So, yes, there is a willingness by the criminals to settle disputes with guns. And then he also said a failure on the part of the justice system to hold them accountable. So people are being let go. Again, I have argued the issue here is enforcing our current laws. It's not about, and again, I think we could even go so far as to remove laws, like in Chicago, the ban on guns. It carries a 15-year penalty, I believe, if you're caught with a firearm in the city limits. 15 years simply for possessing a gun. Now, let me ask you, do you think that has stopped criminals from having a gun? Obviously not. 4,338 shootings in 2016. Total homicides 754. So guns aren't allowed there, yet criminals are getting guns, and they're getting them at a record rate. Again, the most violence in 20 years. So what we've managed to do is disarm the law-abiding citizens in this city, and we're not holding the violent criminals accountable. We're not sending them into jail until there's no likelihood that they're going to repeat another violent crime. We're releasing people back out onto our streets who are violent and likely to repeat their violent crimes. It's unbelievable. This is disgusting. And honestly, I can't help but feel really sad when I think about how off the ball this is. This is what happens with progressive policies. It's just despicable. The progressive Democrats are literally killing people with their policies. They're literally enslaving and killing people. Now, I know that's not going to be a popular thing to say. I don't care. The idea of using force against people at every turn is, first of all, immoral. Second of all, doesn't work. And third of all, leads to this. It leads to 754 people dying in 1 year in one city. If people were allowed to have guns, for example, I want you to imagine if all the gun laws in Chicago were wiped away. Wipe them away. If there were no gun laws in Chicago restricting your right to keep and bear arms, and let's say the government, like they did with ISIS, let's just say, because they were arming ISIS. Well, let's just say the government started arming people. You want a gun? Just show up to this spot, and we'll give you an AR-15 or an AK-47, full auto. All right, you're a law-abiding citizen. We'll just give it to you. Here you go. Here you go. We'll give it to everybody, and maybe we'll even arm up some criminals in the process. Let's assume that some criminals are going to get a hold of those guns too. Let's just assume. But let's say we encourage people to be armed in Chicago. If everybody's armed, there will be less gun violence because you don't know who's going to shoot back. Right now, this is a shooting fish in a barrel. The criminals are the only ones with guns. They know they're the only ones with guns because it's a crime to be armed. So the only people who are armed are criminals. So when they go to target an average citizen, they can't defend themselves. And I'm sorry, I don't care what arguments that you can come up with here about, oh, well, just because you have a gun doesn't mean you're going to be able to stop the bad guy. I don't care. I want a fighting chance. I don't want to be that guy who's, for example, at that Pulse nightclub shooting, Tony Strong, I believe was his name. He had his head underneath the couch pretending to be dead. He was shot in the back and still pretended to be dead, then crawled over dead bodies to get out. He was laying there for like 45 minutes. Waiting for someone to come save him. I am not going to be that guy. I don't want you to be that guy. I want you to have the ability to defend yourself. I don't want you to be disarmed. And again, even if you're not able to save your own life, even if the active shooter or bad guy takes you out, at least you had a chance. At least you had a fighting chance, and maybe your actions, even if they kill you, maybe it'll save some lives in the process, and maybe you'll take the guy out with you. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll slow him down long enough to where somebody else can get away. I'd rather that than somebody being completely disarmed and vulnerable and just waiting to be assassinated. 754 deaths in Chicago, 2016. This is what happens with progressive policies. Gun laws do not make us safer. They make us more vulnerable. Gun laws kill. Gun laws encourage crime. Gun laws create underground, unregulated, black markets where only the criminals have the weapons. Gun laws kill. I cannot say that enough. So back to this article. We used to respond to gang fights in progress. Now we respond to shots fired, Navarro said. People fought. Now everyone picks up the gun just like that. Through December 26th, 754 people were slain in Chicago compared to 480 during the same period last year, which was still incredible. That's a ridiculous amount, but there's really been an uptick in here. An increase of 57% according to official police department statistics. The last time Chicago tallied a similar number of shootings was in 1997 when 761 people were slain. Shooting incidents also jumped by 46% this year to 3,512 from 2,398. The statistics show. So it went from 3,500 to 2,300. Or I'm sorry, from 2,300 to 3,500. So it increased again. What's more, crimes went up by double digit in nearly every major category, including criminal sexual acts, robberies, and thefts. Month by month, Chicago's homicide numbers have ticked upward. On cold days and warm days, snowy days, and during holiday weekends alike. Kennedy slain on August 9th in a Rosemore neighborhood was among the 92 homicides across Chicago that month. The most the city had seen in a single month since July 1993, when they were 99. The weekend immediately before Halloween ended with 59 people shot, 17 fatally, the deadliest weekend of 2016. In November, homicides totaled 77, the worst for that month since 78 and 1994. Crazy. The police department statistics do not include about an additional 20 killings on area expressways, police-involved shootings, other homicides in which a person was killed in self-defense, or death investigations. Looking back to 1998, when Chicago recorded 704 homicides, the city was in the midst of a homicide decline from more than 900 earlier in the decade. The turn of the millennium saw a bottoming out, with homicides dropping to 453 at the end of 2004, around the time the police department began relying on computerized data to know where to deploy officers where they were needed the most. The tally rose again somewhat, then went down again in 2014 when the city recorded 416 slayings. So the question is here, how do you respond to this? How do you respond? I argue the best way to respond to this many deaths, it's obvious that the criminals are going to get the guns. So you respond by allowing citizens to carry weapons and allow them to defend themselves. And I think that we will see a marked improvement on the homicide rate if people are just allowed to carry. If you don't have a concealed carry permit requirement, if you allow people to carry a gun for any reason whatsoever, anywhere they want, respect their right to defend themselves, because it does not make sense as an individual. Just think of it in terms of your life, okay? You only have this one life. You may believe in an afterlife or something like that, but your time here is finite. And it's so easy for you to get snuffed out. It's so easy to be killed. Human life is fragile. And you've only got this one life. You have to be able to defend yourself. You can't, first of all, rely on the government to defend you, because you'll end up like these 754 people who were shot in Chicago. Government can't be everywhere at once. It can't protect you, and it shouldn't. You don't have a right to be safe. You have a right to make yourself safe by taking precautions. But no one's safe ever. The world is an unsafe place. The sooner we all get that through our freaking skulls, the better. The world is unsafe. There is no safety anywhere. Somebody can come in at any point and kill you. Your best defense is picking up a gun, and not to just start killing people randomly, not to be irresponsible with it, but your best defense is to have a gun with you, which is the great equalizer. It doesn't matter what your physical capabilities are. We're all the same when we have a gun in our hand. Our ability to defend ourselves is the same. It's just, it comes to an amount of training that you've had on that weapon system and maybe some luck. But it's just frustrating for me when you think about how precious life is and how easy it is for us to be killed, and then people talking about how you need to be disarmed. The best way for you to defend yourself in our society, in our world, our modern world that we're living in, is to be able to carry a gun for your defense and the defense of loved ones and those around you. If everybody was armed, we would have a whole lot less crime. People talk about, oh, it'll turn into the Wild West with gun shootouts and all that stuff. There was not very much gun crime in the Wild West because people would get shot. Everybody had a gun. Comparatively speaking, Chicago is more like the Wild West than the Wild West was. It's just crazy. Okay, so let's go ahead and cut to another topic here. This one is gonna. I want to cut to a Mac attack for this one because I find it particularly interesting. Here we go.
It's time for the Mac attack.
So there's a lot of people throwing around the moniker of Nazis, and let me be clear. The only ones who are Nazis are Nazis. All right? White supremacists, people who believe that they are a superior race, people who are actually subscribing to the anti-Semitism, and believe in National Socialism. Those are Nazis. That was the Nazi Party. But Martin O'Malley, you know that guy on the Democrat stage that nobody knew who he was and he didn't appear to know what he was talking about? Martin O'Malley. He was running for president of the United States. You might have heard about him. Here's an article on The Blaze, blaze.com, titled, Martin O'Malley Compares Trump and His Supporters to Nazis. This article was written today, January 15th, 2017, the year of our Lord. And former governor of Maryland and one-time Democratic presidential contender Martin O'Malley has been prolific on Twitter lately, responding to President-elect Donald Trump's feud with Democratic Representative John Lewis from Georgia with some surprising characterizations. O'Malley, who left the governorship in 2015 to run in the presidential primaries on the Democrat ticket, has been referring to the incoming Trump administration with allusions to Nazi Germany and the Ku Klux Klan. Martin O'Malley's Twitter post reads, at Representative John Lewis is right. Trump wasn't popularly elected. A fascist candidacy based on racist fears and Russian help should never be legitimized. So again, this is what they're attacking. Saying that people are racist for voting for Donald Trump. This is a fascist candidacy. Fascist, by the way, fascist is what the Nazis were, what Hitler was. He was a fascist, where they basically, central plan the economy, and it's the government colluding with big business, and it's statism, big government. That's what fascism is. I contend that there are some parallels here that could be pointed out between what Trump wants to do as far as growing the federal Leviathan. But I hope that's, again, one of the things I'm starting to notice about Donald Trump is I think that he looks at everything as deal making, and I think that he might go to one extreme, all the way to the extreme. It's like when you're making a deal with somebody for a car, you underbid them by a ton, and then when you go up to the middle part, you both have an agreement there. I think this is what Trump is doing with foreign policy. I think he may be doing that with some other things. I'm not even entirely positive if Donald Trump will actually push for a replacement of Obamacare. Even though he's been saying repeal and replace, repeal and replace, repeal and replace, I'm not even positive if he will, and I hope he doesn't. I genuinely hope that he doesn't create a Trump care. I think he will, but I don't know. But anyway, so O'Malley saying that Trump is a fascist and that people voted for him essentially here because of racist fears and that he got elected with Russian help should never be legitimized. Okay. A lot of things wrong with that. First of all, everybody who voted for Donald Trump is not racist. Again, when you are a Republican, a conservative, a libertarian, somebody who just wants a government off their back, wants a small government, it's not racist to vote for Donald Trump if you think that he is the alternative to more of the same, to a continuation of the Obama policy, which was exactly what Hillary Clinton represented. This was a change election. People were fed up. And now, first of all, let's mention here, he mentions Donald Trump wasn't popularly elected. Who cares? This isn't a democracy. Get it through your thick freaking skulls, Democrats. This is not a democracy. This is a republic, as evidenced by the Electoral College. Yeah, it's not democratic. We get it. It wasn't designed to be. Our founders didn't like democracy. Example. Here we go. Ben Franklin said democracy was two wolves and a lamb voting for what's for dinner. He said liberty was a well-armed lamb. Boom. There's plenty of other quotes like that out there. The founders did not like or trust democracy. They said that it led to the worst form of tyranny, which is majority tyranny of the majority. It's the worst form because it's dysfunctional. You never know. One day the mob will want this. One day the mob will want that. And you never know when public sentiment is going to swing and you're going to be the target. At least under a totalitarian regime where one strong man is in charge, at least in that sense, you're not as manic. You're not as schizophrenic because you have one person leading and pushing forward an agenda. Yeah, it's still tyranny. But this is why democracy leads to the worst form of tyranny, because it's schizophrenic tyranny. It has no agenda that is consistent. They're not pushing one primary thing. It's bouncing all over the place, and you never know who will get swept up in it. We're not a freaking democracy. So who cares if Trump wasn't popularly elected? That just goes to show you that Trump ran a better election because he knew how the system worked, or maybe he got lucky, or maybe it was a failure on Hillary Clinton's running her campaign. I heard she ran up her popular vote tally in New Orleans. But I don't know if that's accurate. That's what I heard. Anyway, and then the Russian help. I've covered this to infinitum. The Russians did not hack this election. Who knows how much they helped? And who the hell are you, O'Malley, to be talking about anyone helping anyone when we already know that the media was giving Hillary Clinton the debate questions ahead of time? Anyway, so O'Malley says now is not the time for reconciliation. So again, this is O'Malley. We're not going to come together. He wants to fight. He says now is not the time for reconciliation. Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Oh my God. He's talking about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Let's talk for a second. Dietrich Bonhoeffer didn't reconcile with the Nazis. MLK didn't reconcile with the KKK. Now we fight. This is what Martin O'Malley's saying. I find it so interesting that Dietrich Bonhoeffer is somebody who he's going to mention in this. And now we fight. Let's mention first, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a pacifist. He did die trying to assassinate Hitler. So is Martin O'Malley suggesting that somebody tried to assassinate Donald Trump? I surely hope not. And I surely hope that never happens. What is Martin O'Malley doing? This is fanning flames, and I'm telling you, these people don't care. They don't care if the country's on fire. They want the country to be on fire. They'll blame it on Donald Trump, even if it's the Democrats, people who are out there burning down the cities. This is exactly what the Democrats and the left have been doing. They rejoice at the failures. They rejoice at the chaos that they cause, and they blame on Republicans. Never let a crisis go to waste. This is their mantra. MLK didn't reconcile with the KKK. Now, let me just say, MLK wasn't talking about fighting. MLK was talking about peaceful resistance. Waging nonviolent struggle. I've discussed this over and over and over again. And by the way, MLK was a Republican, and the KKK were the Democrats. So it's very interesting how you take two peaceful, nonviolent struggle advocates like Dietrich Bonhoeffer and MLK, and you talk about fighting. MLK especially didn't talk about fighting. Now he meant being active. Now I don't know what they're talking about here, but again, mentioning Dietrich Bonhoeffer, that alludes to assassination. That's concerning. And talking about how it's not a time for reconciliation, and that now is the time to fight. I'm telling you, folks, this is going to get bad. This is going to get incredibly bad. Anyway, the article continues. The feud between Lewis, a civil rights icon, and Trump began with Lewis declaring he would not consider the president legitimate. They're again talking about the illegitimacy of his presidency. Martin O'Malley was recently rallying Democrat troops in Utah, a traditionally red state that publicly vacillated between Trump and write-in candidate Evan McMullin in the 2016 election. O'Malley told Good for Utah, the Democrat Party needs to rebuild, and the time to do that is right now. And that sort of rebuilding won't take place in Washington. It'll take place in Salt Lake City. It'll take place in Utah. It'll take place in states across the United States. He says the power of political parties seems to ebb and flow, and Utah won't always be an all-red state. O'Malley also prominently displayed his tweet comparing Trump and his supporters to Nazis on his homepage, on the homepage of his website. Let's see what that says here. Let me see if I can see it. Nope, doesn't have it listed here. All right, well, no worries. Anyway, I just think that it is incredible that somebody would actually compare every single Donald Trump supporter or Trump supporters in the fact that he got that he got elected based on racist fears and Russian help again, and they're trying to advocate for delegitimizing the whole thing when they're the ones that they said, their words, that to not accept the election results would be a threat to democracy. Their words, they're the ones that said it. It's just so comical how things played out. I really do think that we are at such a pivotal time here, folks. We have to talk to each other. I've been saying that for a long time. We have to talk and we have to listen. We have to find our common ground, things that we all want. And let's start with our fears. What are you afraid of? What are the Democrats afraid of? They're afraid, first of all, let's say just the Democrat voters. They're afraid that they're going to be attacked. The right is going to turn on the machine, and they're going to start being targeted. These are legitimate fears that they have. They're concerned about how immigrants, for example, they're concerned that illegal immigrants are going to be deported. Okay, well, that's a conversation we should have. We should talk about that. I personally think that if you're here legally, you should be deported. That's just my opinion. But what's another thing? They think Donald Trump is anti-gay rights. Well, let's talk with them about their fears, hear them out, and then come together on what we can do to alleviate that. I think that the best solution, the way that we bridge this divide, instead of us sitting here talking about how we're going to shove this down their throat, shove that down their throat, this policy, that policy. Instead of doing that, let's talk about how we can create more checks and balances so that the government can't be taken over by one party like this and have it just completely shove things down everybody's throats. Let's talk about the non-aggression principle. Let's talk about how it doesn't feel good to be the person who's being forced to do something against your will. And this is one of the things that the Democrats like to talk about is the feelings. So let's talk about feelings. Let's relate it to them. Instead of using this time to say, aha, now we're going to stick it to you and turn the screws like you did to us. Instead of that, let's try to talk with them. Let's try to figure out why they're afraid of what they're afraid of. Talk about the non-aggression principle and explain why redistribution of wealth is wrong. Put them in the position of being somebody who's a property owner and they're being told what to do with their property. Put them in a position. Create the example. Again, one of my favorite things to do when talking to people about redistribution of wealth who support it in theory. They support it in theory, but then you start talking with them and they really don't support it. Is you present this scenario, and you can feel free to steal this. Feel free. I don't care. The first thing I ask is, let's say I'm in a room with a couple of people and we're talking about politics, and they support welfare, redistribution of wealth in other forms. Doesn't matter what it is. Let's say they support that. And then let's say if there's other people in the room, I say, okay, well, let's assume here that we're all starving. Okay? Everybody in this room, let's say there's 3 of us in the room. Me and person A, they are starving. And you have this food. But you only have enough food for your family to last, however long. And you've planned it out. You own the food. You worked for it. Let's say you even harvested it and grew it yourself. It's your farm. The food belongs to you. Everything belongs to you. Then you ask them, how would you feel about me and person A, this other person in the room? How would you feel if we voted and said that we now have a right to your food? How would you feel about that? You focus on the feelings, and most people wouldn't feel good about that. Now, some people would say, and I've had this conversation. Some people would say, "Well, look, I should want to. I don't want them to starve. I'd be happy to help them out and give them some of my food." And then I point out, well, look, that's charity. What you're doing is charity, and that's on you. That is a choice that you're making. That's a freedom that you have to make to be charitable. But let's say you don't want to do that. And it's being taken against your will. They're coming in, kicking in your door with guns, saying, if you don't give the food, we're going to throw you in a dark cell. That is what the government does. That is what redistribution of wealth does. If you don't pay up, you don't hand over your property, we're going to come get you. And if you resist us, we'll kill you. That is what redistribution is at its essence, at its core. And I've gotten so many people, based on that analogy, to say, yeah, I wouldn't really feel right about that. It's not really right. I've got them to question that with that conversation. And I think it's useful. Feel free to use it, like I said. But these are the conversations we should be having. We should be, we need to understand how Democrats and the left talk. They don't talk about logic. They don't try to talk about statistics and what works and what doesn't. They don't even look at, in many cases, the outcome of the policies that they've created, which in many cases, like the welfare state, has created a state of dependency and hurt more than it's helped. It's perpetuated poverty instead of actually helping poverty. So we can't talk about that kind of stuff initially. If we do, they're going to shut us out. We need to talk about feelings. How would you feel if somebody tried to tell you what to do against your will and they had the force of law behind it? How would you feel if a majority of people decided? And again, this is how we also attack this democracy narrative that America is a democracy, which we're not. We're a republic. You attack the tyranny of the majority. You do this by creating scenarios where they would not be happy if a majority of people were doing something against them. And then you bring it all back. You swing this all back around to the principle that all men are created equal. And anyone who believes in redistribution of wealth does not fundamentally either understand or believe that all men are created equal. Because if you believe that all men and women are created equal, then that means that no other man or woman has a right to force you to do something against your will, like provide your property. So if you can link all this together and get them to understand the fundamental principles of individual liberty, that we're all equal. We don't have a right to force others to do stuff against their will. If you can just get them to understand that, because most people don't have that fundamental understanding. They hear these talking points, but they don't understand what it means. So use their feelings. Talk about their feelings. Make them feel uncomfortable. And not in a way that where you're being aggressive, but put their own policies back on them and ask them how they would feel about it. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and wrap up our show today. That's all the time we got for today. I want to next week. I'm going to start with things to look out for during a Trump presidency. I want to talk about that, but we're going to wrap up the show early today. Anyway, let me give a big shout out to the MacPack. Thanks so much, MacPack, for tuning in week after week. You guys are freaking awesome, and I love you guys. You're the tip of the spear. Thanks so much. And don't forget to share out the show, please, and hit the like button on everything, all the social media platforms, all that good stuff. So, don't forget to check us out on our website every Sunday, OnTheMoveShow.com. Every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can follow us on Spreaker.com/OnTheMoveShow. Like us on Facebook.com/OnTheMoveShow. Follow us on Twitter.com/OnTheMoveShow. And subscribe to us on YouTube.com/OnTheMoveShow. And as always, know your rights, assert your rights, and get on the move.